Can You Believe What We Did? By Taylor Boatwright and Briana Monarca under the advisement of Dr. Minerva Brauss and Dr. Daniel Brauss at Francis Marion University.
Traveling abroad has many advantages, one of which is cultural immersion that we were able to experience in the week that we spent in Central America, Belize, through working alongside and staying with various members of the community. The sampling of food, language, culture, and architecture, and habits from various communities helped to give a better sense of the heart of the Belizean people. The donation of supplies to local schools and working with teachers there to create STEM-related activities for elementary age students is how we were further immersed in the culture and able to complete community outreach work. The combination of our various expertise went well with the activities so that we could each teach a separate aspect of the science and math behind the projects. Finally, during our stay, we worked on testing water for any contaminants from the Billy Barkadir National Park and the Valley community. This testing is important because it helped to identify whether the source of contamination stemmed from the rivers or the pipe systems in the homes of the Valley community. Testing involved collecting samples in the field with a Pro DSS water quality meter, and lab testing used a colorimeter and autoclave to test the microbial and chemical makeup. These research components and their findings will be expanded upon in the coming weeks. Below you can see our itinerary for our trip. We arrived first in San Ignacio, then we hiked in Billy Barkadir National Park and collected samples. On our third day, we traveled to Belmopan and did testing in the lab at the University of Belize. Then we went back to San Ignacio and visited Zunantunich, a Mayan ruin. We then traveled to Orange Walk Town where we worked with students in 2 schools. Then we had a 2-day stay in the island of Cape Cocker. Finally, we traveled back to Orange Walk Town where we had a meal with a traditional family, and from there we returned home. Some of the experiences that we had for culture immersion were visiting Zunantunich and getting to meet locals from the Maya community as they gave tours of the ruins. We learned about their culture and language and how through generations it has decreased in use. We also learned about the history of Mayan culture, religion, society, and mathematical and scientific advancements, including how the tops of their buildings line up with solar phenomenon. Cape Cocker was a fun trip to an island town where we were able to meet locals and be introduced to new foods including lobster and fried jacks. We learned the history of the island and its significance, including how it was split in half by a hurricane. We were also introduced to the workings of island life. Our dinner with the traditional Indian family was another wonderful experience, trying foods within their culture, including a meal that had rice, eggs, and chicken, learning about their family dynamics and opportunities, and viewing a part of their clothing and traditional wedding dances. Dr. Enriquez from the University of Belize hosted us in her home and told us stories about the Griffith culture that she descends from. She cooked a traditional meal including rice and beans, cooked vegetables, and chicken. Finally, we were introduced to many locals of Belize and many traditional cuisine options including rice and beans, new fruit of soursop, star fruit, and fresh coconut, fresh yogurt, granachas, and empanadas.
Our outreach included bringing supplies to school children including backpacks, pencils, notebooks, and other necessities. We also worked with school children on STEM-related educational activities, such as creating slime as a chemistry experiment and using slingshots to throw balloons as a physics experiment. We related each of these to lessons on these topics and asked the students questions about how they thought the outcomes would change if we were to change the variables. We also planned alongside teachers to create these lessons that followed along with our experiments. For research, we hiked for 5 hours through Billy Barkadir National Park, collecting water samples and doing in-field experiments using a Pro DSS water quality meter. We took these samples back to the lab where we conducted chemical and microbial tests on them to look at the levels of minerals such as phosphorus and bacteria such as E. coli in the water. We had lessons from UB professors on the correct way to organize and handle data. We are now working on doing a statistical analysis on the data that was collected. Not only was traveling through Belize for a week a great experience, it was also very eye-opening and an opportunity to learn from different cultures. Having traveled to different countries before, we had an idea on what it was like to be completely immersed into a brand new culture. However, every culture around the world is vastly different from the other. So we were still constantly learning new things like the societal norms in a certain district, regular meals that locals ate, and various words and phrases that were often used between locals. While the cultural immersion we experienced was fun, it has also been an amazing learning opportunity and has taught us skills that we may share with those around us, allowed us to develop a deeper understanding of those around the world and how they live, and brings us one step closer to minimizing divisions that are in place all over the world. In the future, we plan on observing our results and providing solutions as to why the water quality was not the same at the top versus at the bottom of the mountain. To do this, we plan on looking at the chemical and microbial differences in the water samples. Possible solutions could include better filtration systems to clean the water that the citizens are accessing, or newer pipe systems to transport the water. Lastly, we would like to thank the professors and the students at the University of Belize, including Professor Charlene Enriquez Savory and Professor Josue Ake, for welcoming us to UB's campus and working alongside us in the field and in the lab. We would also like to thank Doctors Minerva Brauss and Daniel Brauss for giving us the opportunity to travel with them and show us around Belize. Finally, a thanks to the grant coaching, mentoring, presenting, and publishing research for undergraduate students from FMU Real.